Welcome, dear friends, seekers of tranquility, and fellow travelers into the rich tapestry of history. Settle yourselves in. Make yourselves comfortable. Allow the day's concerns to gently drift away like leaves on a quiet stream. In this serene space we've created, we embark tonight on a historical deep dive, a journey not just to inform, but to soothe, to gently carry you on the currents of time towards the shores of peaceful sleep. Think for a moment about the profound gift of sleep. It's the sanctuary where the mind can rest, where the body rejuvenates, where the subconscious can process the day's experiences and prepare us for the dawn. And what better way to ease into this precious state than by allowing the gentle rhythm of a story, the unfolding of history, to occupy the forefront of your awareness, softly nudging aside the chatter of the day. Tonight, we delve into a life so extraordinary, so filled with ambition, triumph, and ultimately poignant lessons, that it has echoed through the corridors of time for centuries. We speak of Napoleon Bonaparte, a name that conjures images of grand armies, sweeping conquests, and a man whose will seemed to bend the very fabric of Europe. But before we immerse ourselves in the intricacies of his life, take a deep, slow breath. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Allow your muscles to relax, your eyelids to grow heavy. Imagine a warm, comforting blanket enveloping you, a sense of safety and peace washing over you. Our journey tonight is not a race. It's a leisurely stroll through the annals of the past, a soft murmur of history designed to lull you into a state of serene contemplation. We will not simply recount dates and battles. Instead, we will try to step into the shoes of those who lived through these times. We will ponder the what-ifs that history so tantalizingly offers. We will question the narratives passed down through textbooks, seeking deeper understandings and perhaps even uncovering forgotten perspectives. So, close your eyes if you wish, or let your gaze soften as you listen. Let the sound of my voice be a gentle guide, a rhythmic companion on your journey towards slumber. Tonight, we unravel the story of a comet that streaked across the European sky, leaving an indelible mark that continues to fascinate and provoke us centuries later. Tonight, we explore the life and times of Napoleon Bonaparte. Imagine the rugged beauty of Corsica in the late 18th century. Picture a Mediterranean island, fiercely independent in spirit, even after its recent acquisition by France. It's 1,769, and in the bustling port town of Ajaccio, Letizia Ramolino, a woman of remarkable strength and resilience, gives birth to her fourth child, Napoleone Bonaparte. Feel the warmth of the Mediterranean sun on your skin. Smell the salty air mingled with the scent of maki, the island's characteristic shrubland. Consider the circumstances of his birth. Just a year prior, Genoa, after centuries of rule, had ceded Corsica to France. For the islanders, this was a significant shift, a change in allegiance that likely stirred complex emotions. Imagine young Napoleon growing up in a household where the echoes of Corsican independence might still have resonated. What if Corsica had managed to maintain its autonomy. How different might Napoleon's destiny, and indeed the destiny of Europe, have been? Would he have remained a local figure, or would his ambition have found another stage? His father, Carlo Bonaparte, was a lawyer with aspirations, navigating the complexities of the new French administration. His mother, Letizia, was the bedrock of the family, a woman whose strength of character would later be lauded even by Napoleon himself. Picture her, managing a growing household, instilling discipline and a sense of purpose in her children. What kind of conversations might have taken place around the family table? What were the early influences that shaped young Napoleon's worldview? At the military academy of Brienne-le-Château, and later at the prestigious École Militaire in Paris, Napoleon distinguished himself not through social graces or athletic prowess, but through his sharp intellect, particularly in mathematics and military strategy. Imagine him poring over maps, his mind already dissecting terrains and envisioning troop movements. Picture him devouring books on ancient history and the art of war, the campaigns of Alexander the Great, Hannibal, and Julius Caesar fueling his imagination. Did these historical figures become his early role models, shaping his understanding of leadership and conquest? Textbooks often present his rise through these institutions as a straightforward meritocratic ascent. But let's pause and consider the nuances. What subtle advantages might his family's minor nobility have afforded him? How did the rigid social hierarchies of pre-revolutionary France, while potentially hindering, perhaps also create opportunities for a determined individual who possessed talent and a willingness to challenge the status quo? Think about the patronage systems of the time. Were there individuals who recognized his potential and offered support? He was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the artillery at the remarkably young age of 16. Artillery in the 18th century was a sophisticated and crucial arm of the military, demanding technical knowledge and precision. Imagine the young officer overseeing the placement and firing of cannons, understanding the physics of trajectory and impact. Was this early specialization a deliberate choice, recognizing his analytical strengths? Or was it simply the path that opened up to him? Consider the impact of this technical grounding on his later battlefield strategies. The French Revolution, a cataclysmic event that would forever alter the course of European history, was brewing during Napoleon's formative years. Imagine the intellectual ferment of the time, the salons buzzing with radical new ideas about liberty, equality, and fraternity. Picture the storming of the Bastille, the overthrow of the monarchy, the very foundations of French society being shaken. How did these revolutionary ideals resonate with the young, ambitious Corsican officer? Did he see in the revolution a chance to break free from the limitations of birth and tradition? Did the chaos and upheaval present an opportunity for a man of his talents to rise? His early military service saw him involved in the tumultuous events of the revolution, including the siege of Toulon in 1793. Imagine the chaos of a city under siege, the booming of cannons, the fear and desperation of the inhabitants. It was here that Napoleon's strategic thinking and personal courage first shone brightly. Picture him, a young artillery commander, formulating a daring plan that led to the capture of the city from royalist forces. This victory earned him rapid promotion and the attention of influential figures within the revolutionary government. What must have gone through his mind as he directed the fire that decided the fate of Toulon? Did this early taste of command solidify his belief in his own abilities? However, his association with the Jacobin faction led to a brief period of imprisonment after the fall of Robespierre. Imagine the sudden reversal of fortune, the fear of being caught on the wrong side of the shifting political landscape. This experience, though brief, must have been a stark reminder of the precariousness of power during revolutionary times. How might this brush with political danger have shaped his understanding of the need for stability and control? As the 18th century drew to a close, Napoleon Bonaparte, the once outsider Corsican artillery officer, was no longer an unknown quantity. He had tasted success, navigated political turmoil, and developed a keen understanding of military strategy and leadership. He possessed an almost palpable sense of destiny. But could anyone, looking at this ambitious young man, have truly foreseen the extraordinary trajectory that lay ahead, the empires he would build and dismantle, the profound and lasting impact he would have on the world? Let these images of a young Napoleon, shaped by the rugged landscapes of Corsica and the tumultuous currents of the French Revolution, gently settle in your mind. Allow the questions we've pondered about his early influences and the unpredictable nature of destiny to fade softly as you prepare for deeper, more restful slumber. Welcome back, dear listeners, to our tranquil journey through history. Tonight, we follow Napoleon Bonaparte as his star begins its dramatic ascent, illuminating the European stage with both brilliance and shadow. The mid-1790s found France still embroiled in conflict with various European powers, a consequence of the revolutionary upheaval that had sent shockwaves across the continent. In 1796, a relatively unknown General Napoleon Bonaparte was appointed commander of the French army in Italy. Imagine the skepticism this appointment might have generated among more established military figures. A young man, barely older than some of his senior officers, tasked with leading a demoralized and poorly equipped army against seasoned Austrian and Piedmontese forces. But Napoleon possessed a fire within him, a conviction in his own abilities that proved infectious. He arrived in Italy and immediately galvanized his troops with stirring speeches, promising them glory, plunder, and a chance to escape the poverty and hardship they had endured. Picture these ragged soldiers, their spirits lifted by the charismatic young general who spoke of victory as if it were already within their grasp. What was the source of this charisma? Was it his unwavering self-belief? His ability to articulate a compelling vision? His military strategy in Italy was nothing short of revolutionary. He abandoned traditional siege warfare, opting instead for rapid maneuvers, decisive engagements, and the exploitation of his enemy's weaknesses. Imagine the speed and agility of his army, appearing where least expected, striking with precision and force. Battles like Lodi, where he personally led a daring charge across a bridge under heavy fire, Arcoli fought amidst marshlands and against determined Austrian resistance, and the decisive victory at Rivoli showcased his tactical genius and his uncanny ability to inspire his soldiers to feats of extraordinary courage. Can you picture the chaos and intensity of these battles, the clash of steel, the roar of cannons, the sheer will to win that Napoleon instilled in his men? Textbooks often laud the military brilliance of the Italian campaign, focusing on the tactical innovations and the string of French victories. But let's consider the broader implications. What was the impact of these campaigns on the Italian peninsula? Ancient republics were overthrown, new pro-French states were established, and the wealth of Italy, including its art treasures, flowed back to France. Imagine the perspective of the Italian people during this period. Were they liberated from oppressive regimes, as French propaganda claimed? Or were they simply replaced by a new set of foreign rulers, their resources exploited for the benefit of France? Think about the soldiers under Napoleon's command. Many were veterans of the revolution, hardened by years of fighting. What did they see in this young general that inspired such fierce loyalty and devotion, even to the point of sacrificing their lives for him? Was it solely the promise of material reward, or did they genuinely believe in the ideals he seemed to represent, the promise of a new order in Europe? After his stunning successes in Italy, Napoleon's ambition turned towards a new and exotic target, Egypt. In 1798, he embarked on a daring expedition, ostensibly to strike at British trade routes to India, a vital artery of British power. Imagine the logistical complexities of such an undertaking, transporting a large army, along with a contingent of scientists and scholars across the Mediterranean Sea, landing in a hostile land steeped in ancient history. Picture the imposing sight of the pyramids rising from the desert sands as the French fleet arrived. The Egyptian campaign was a fascinating blend of military ambition and intellectual curiosity. Napoleon brought with him not just soldiers, but also a vast team of experts in various fields, tasked with studying and documenting Egypt's rich history and culture. Their discoveries, most famously the Rosetta Stone, would prove invaluable to our understanding of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Was this an attempt by Napoleon to emulate the great conquerors of antiquity, like Alexander the Great, who also brought scholars on their expeditions? Or was it a genuine appreciation for knowledge and a desire to enhance France's prestige through intellectual achievement? However, the Egyptian campaign was also fraught with peril and ultimately ended in strategic failure. The British Navy, under Admiral Nelson, decisively destroyed the French fleet at the Battle of the Nile, effectively trapping Napoleon's army in Egypt. Imagine the despair of the French soldiers, cut off from their homeland, facing a determined enemy and the harsh realities of the desert climate. Disease, heat stroke, and constant skirmishes took a heavy toll on their numbers. The Siege of Acre in 1799, a crucial stronghold in the Levant, proved unsuccessful, thwarting Napoleon's further advance. Consider the controversies surrounding the Egyptian campaign. What were Napoleon's true motivations? Was it a calculated strategic move to weaken Britain? Or was it a more romantic, perhaps even delusional, pursuit of glory in the East? And what about the impact on the Egyptian people? How did they view the French occupation, the imposition of foreign rule on their ancient land? Accounts from the time paint a picture of resistance and resentment. Despite the military setbacks in Egypt, Napoleon managed to return to France in 1799, his reputation largely undiminished. He skillfully employed propaganda to portray the expedition as a scientific and cultural triumph, downplaying the military failures and emphasizing the discoveries made by his team of scholars. What does this tell us about Napoleon's understanding of public perception and his ability to shape narratives? Imagine the news reaching France, tales of exotic lands and ancient wonders overshadowing the less glorious realities of the campaign. Picture the scene as Napoleon arrives back in France. The political situation was volatile, the Directory government weak and ineffective, plagued by corruption and internal divisions. Many in France, weary of instability and yearning for strong leadership, saw in Napoleon a potential savior, a man capable of restoring order and national pride. Was his return a carefully planned maneuver, a recognition of the political vacuum that existed, or was it a desperate gamble by a general whose military ambitions had stalled? The Italian and Egyptian campaigns, despite their contrasting outcomes, were instrumental in forging Napoleon's image as a brilliant military commander and a man of destiny. He had demonstrated audacious strategic thinking, an uncanny ability to inspire his troops, and a remarkable talent for self-promotion. The stage was now set for him to seize the reins of power in a nation yearning for stability. Let these vivid images of sun-drenched pyramids, fierce battles fought on Italian plains, and a charismatic young general leading his troops through both triumph and adversity gently fade into the quiet corners of your mind. Allow the questions we've raised about ambition, perception, and the complexities of historical events to settle softly as you drift further into the embrace of peaceful sleep. Welcome once more, tranquil listeners, to our historical lullaby. Tonight, we witness the next pivotal chapter in the life of Napoleon Bonaparte, his shrewd and decisive ascent to supreme power in France, a transformation that would reshape the political landscape of Europe. Upon his return from the Egyptian campaign in 1799, Napoleon stepped onto a French stage rife with political instability. The Directory, the governing body established after the Reign of Terror, was widely perceived as corrupt, inefficient, and unable to address the pressing challenges facing the nation, both internal and external. Imagine the atmosphere of disillusionment and uncertainty that permeated French society. The initial fervor of the revolution had waned, replaced by a yearning for order and strong leadership. In November 1799, the month of Brumaire in the revolutionary calendar, Napoleon, in a carefully orchestrated move involving key political figures like Sieyès and his own brother Lucien, staged a coup d'etat. Picture the dramatic scenes in the Council of 500, the legislative body where tensions ran high, and Napoleon's supporters, and indeed Napoleon himself, entered with armed guards. Imagine the debates, the accusations, the sheer audacity of a military general seizing political control. It was a moment that marked a significant turning point, effectively ending the revolutionary experiment and ushering in a new era of centralized authority. Textbooks often portray the coup of Brumaire as a necessary intervention to save France from chaos and foreign threats. But let's critically examine this narrative. Was the Directory truly on the verge of collapse, leaving no other viable option? Or was the coup a calculated power grab by an ambitious individual who saw an opportunity to fulfill his own aspirations? Consider the long-term consequences for democratic principles in France. Did this forceful seizure of power set a precedent for future authoritarian rule? Following the coup, a new government called the Consulate was established, with Napoleon as first consul. Imagine the speed and efficiency with which he set about consolidating his power. He skillfully navigated the complex political landscape, co-opting some former revolutionaries while sidelining or suppressing opposition. Picture him working tirelessly, often late into the night, to implement a series of sweeping reforms designed to centralize the government and restore stability. One of his most significant achievements during the consulate was the reform of the legal system, culminating in the promulgation of the Napoleonic Code or Civil Code in 1804. Imagine the monumental task of codifying the diverse and often contradictory laws of France into a unified and coherent legal framework. The Napoleonic Code enshrined many of the principles of the French Revolution, such as equality before the law, religious toleration, and the abolition of feudal privileges. However, it also reinforced patriarchal structures within the family and strengthened the authority of the state. Was this a progressive step forward for its time? A lasting contribution to the development of modern legal systems? Or did it represent a pragmatic compromise of revolutionary ideals in the pursuit of order and control? Consider its enduring influence on legal systems across Europe, and even in parts of the Americas. What aspects of the code do you think had the most profound and lasting impact on individual rights and societal structures? Napoleon also focused on rebuilding the French economy and establishing sound financial institutions. He created the Bank of France, a central bank designed to regulate the nation's finances. Imagine the impact of this institution on stabilizing the French currency and fostering economic growth after years of revolution and war. He also invested in infrastructure projects, such as roads and canals, aimed at improving trade and communication. Furthermore, Napoleon sought to restore peace, both domestically and internationally. He quelled internal rebellions and negotiated treaties with some of France's European adversaries, most notably the Peace of Amiens with Great Britain in 1802. Imagine their belief and optimism that this period of fragile peace must have brought to a war-weary Europe. After years of almost constant conflict, the prospect of sustained peace likely offered a glimmer of hope for stability and prosperity. However, this peace proved to be short-lived. Tensions between France and Great Britain soon resurfaced, fueled by a complex interplay of competing economic interests, colonial ambitions, and Napoleon's continued expansion of French influence on the continent. Imagine the growing suspicion and animosity between these two great powers, each viewing the other's actions with increasing alarm. What were the fundamental, underlying causes of this renewed conflict? Was it an inevitable clash of empires, driven by irreconcilable differences? As Napoleon's power and prestige within France grew, so too did the calls for a more permanent and stable form of government. In 1802, through a plebiscite, a nationwide vote, he was made consul for life, further consolidating his personal authority and signaling a move away from the ideals of a republic. Imagine the shift in political discourse, the gradual acceptance of a more centralized, even autocratic form of rule in exchange for stability and order. And then, in 1804, In a lavish and symbolic ceremony held at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of the French. Picture the grandeur of the occasion, the opulent attire, the presence of dignitaries from across France and Europe. In a highly symbolic act, Napoleon famously took the crown from the hands of Pope Pius VII and placed it upon his own head, a powerful statement of his self-belief and the supremacy of the state over the Church. What did this coronation signify for the future of France and the legacy of the Revolution? Was it the final nail in the coffin of Republican ideals, a definitive embrace of imperial ambition? Or was it a pragmatic adaptation to the perceived needs of a large and complex nation seeking strong leadership and international recognition? Textbooks often present this transition to empire as a natural progression, a reflection of Napoleon's immense popularity and a widespread desire for strong, centralized leadership to ensure stability and protect France from its enemies. But let's consider alternative perspectives. How did those who had passionately embraced the ideals of the Republic, liberty, equality, fraternity, view this transformation? Was there significant opposition to Napoleon's imperial ambitions, perhaps expressed in hushed whispers in salons or through underground pamphlets? The official records may not always capture the full spectrum of public opinion. As emperor, Napoleon continued to centralize power, building a vast and intricate administrative machinery directly under his control. He surrounded himself with loyal and capable marshals, many of whom had risen through the ranks based on their military merit. He also established a new aristocracy, not based on birth, but on service to the state, further solidifying his authority and creating a loyal elite. Imagine the imperial court, the elaborate ceremonies, the carefully cultivated image of power and grandeur designed to project French dominance across Europe. The consulate and the early years of the empire represented a period of significant internal reform and consolidation in France. Napoleon's energy, ambition, and remarkable administrative skills were undeniable. He left an indelible mark on French society, laying the groundwork for many of its modern institutions and legal frameworks. However, his insatiable desire for power and the expansion of French influence would soon plunge Europe into a new and even more devastating era of conflict, the Napoleonic Wars. Let the images of grand coronations, sweeping legal reforms, the creation of a new imperial court, and the undeniable rise of Napoleon Bonaparte to the pinnacle of French power gently drift through your mind like a soft, persistent breeze. Allow the questions we've pondered about the nature of power, the legacy of revolution, and the allure of empire to settle softly within your thoughts as you journey deeper into the tranquil realm of dreams. Welcome back, peaceful listeners, to our ongoing historical reverie. Tonight, we enter the tumultuous era of the Napoleonic Wars, a period of intense and widespread conflict that dramatically reshaped the political map of Europe and left an enduring legacy of both change and resistance. From 1803 onwards, Europe became a vast battlefield, almost constantly embroiled in a series of interconnected wars fueled by Napoleon's relentless ambition to establish a French-dominated empire. Imagine the sheer scale of these conflicts, the mobilization of armies numbering in the hundreds of thousands, the thunder of cannon fire echoing across the continent from Spain to Russia. Picture the intricate web of alliances and shifting loyalties as European powers formed coalitions to either support or resist Napoleon's expanding influence. Napoleon's Grande Armée was a formidable and innovative fighting force, renowned for its speed of maneuver, its disciplined ranks, and its reliance on a combination of infantry, cavalry, and artillery. He achieved a string of remarkable and often decisive victories in the early years of the empire. Consider the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805, often hailed as his tactical masterpiece, where he decisively outmaneuvered and defeated the combined forces of Austria and Russia. Imagine Napoleon on the field, observing the terrain, anticipating his enemy's moves, and orchestrating a complex ballet of troops that led to a stunning triumph. Can you visualize the chaos and confusion of the battlefield, the courage and sacrifice of the soldiers, and the decisive impact of Napoleon's strategic brilliance? Textbooks often focus intently on Napoleon's military genius, analyzing his battle plans and celebrating his victories. But let's pause and contemplate the human cost of these grand campaigns. Imagine the sheer number of casualties, the young men who marched off to war and never returned, leaving behind grieving families and shattered lives. Consider the impact on civilian populations in the war zones, the destruction of homes and livelihoods, the displacement of communities, the constant fear and uncertainty of living under the shadow of war. The romanticized narratives of military glory often obscure the brutal realities of conflict. Napoleon's conquests led to a radical redrawing of the map of Europe. Ancient empires like the Holy Roman Empire were dissolved, and new kingdoms, duchies, and confederations were established, often with Napoleon's relatives or loyal supporters placed on the thrones of conquered territories. Imagine the profound upheaval this caused, the displacement of long-established ruling families, the imposition of French administrative systems, and legal codes on diverse populations with their own distinct histories and cultures. How did the people in these occupied lands perceive their new French rulers? Were they seen as liberators bringing the progressive ideals of the French Revolution, or as foreign oppressors imposing their will and extracting resources? The answer likely varied greatly, depending on the region and the specific policies implemented. Great Britain remained Napoleon's most persistent and implacable adversary. Its naval supremacy, decisively demonstrated at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, where Admiral Nelson famously defeated the combined French and Spanish fleets, prevented Napoleon from ever launching a successful invasion of the British Isles. Imagine the sense of security that British naval power provided to the island nation. The knowledge that their shores were largely protected from direct French assault. Conversely, imagine Napoleon's frustration at being unable to strike directly at his most powerful enemy. Unable to defeat Britain militarily through invasion, Napoleon implemented the Continental System, a large-scale economic blockade aimed at crippling the British economy by closing all ports under French control or influence to British goods. Think about the far-reaching economic consequences of this policy across Europe. How did it affect trade and commerce? Did it achieve its intended goal of weakening Britain, or did it instead create resentment and economic hardship in French-dominated territories, leading to widespread smuggling and resistance? Britain, with its powerful navy, was able to find new markets outside of Europe, and the disruption of trade often hurt the continental economies more than Britain's. What does this tell us about the complexities and unintended consequences of economic warfare? The year 1812 marked a crucial turning point in Napoleon's fortunes, a decision that would ultimately sow the seeds of his downfall. His decision to invade Russia with a massive army of over 500,000 men, the Grande Armée, proved to be a catastrophic blunder. Imagine the sheer scale of this undertaking, the logistical nightmare of supplying such a vast force across the immense distances of Russia. Picture the harsh Russian terrain, the scorching summer giving way to the brutal and unforgiving winter. The Russian army, under the shrewd leadership of figures like Kutuzov, employed a strategy of retreating in scorched earth, deliberately avoiding decisive battles and denying the French army vital supplies. The Battle of Borodino in September 1812 was a bloody and fiercely contested affair, but ultimately inconclusive in terms of a decisive victory for Napoleon. Imagine the carnage of that day, the relentless artillery barrages, the desperate charges of infantry and cavalry, the staggering loss of life on both sides. Napoleon eventually reached Moscow, the heart of Russia, but the city was largely deserted and soon after erupted in flames, depriving the French army of winter quarters and vital supplies. The subsequent retreat from Russia was an unmitigated disaster. Imagine the horrors faced by the once proud Grande Armée, the relentless cold, the lack of food and shelter, the constant harassment by the pursuing Russian forces ambled by the grand dramas of history. And so, dear listener, we gently draw the curtains on our historical exploration for this night. We've traversed the extraordinary and often turbulent path of Napoleon Bonaparte, a life brimming with ambition, brilliance, and profound consequences that continue to ripple through the currents of time. As the echoes of his triumphs and his complexities softly recede, I hope you find a sense of quiet contemplation and a peaceful stillness settling within you. Think for a moment about the vastness of history, an endless ocean of stories and experiences that have shaped the world we inhabit. Consider the rise and fall of empires, the intricate dance of human ambition and consequence, the enduring lessons whispered from the annals of the past. And yet, within this grand and sweeping narrative, each of us finds our own tranquil harbor, our own precious moment of rest and renewal. Allow yourself to sink a little deeper now, surrendering to the gentle pull of sleep. Release any lingering thoughts from the day, any tensions held within your muscles. Imagine them dissolving like mist in the morning sun, drifting away on a soft breeze. Feel the comforting weight of your surroundings, the reassuring presence of your own peaceful space. Know that you are safe, you are secure, and that the steady, gentle rhythm of your breath is your faithful guide, carrying you ever closer to the tranquil shores of deep and restorative sleep. Let the stories of the past, the grand dramas, and the subtle nuances we've explored simply become a comforting backdrop to your drifting thoughts, a soft and rhythmic murmur that soothes your mind and eases your way into slumber. Embrace this quiet moment, this interlude of peace before the dawn, Allow your mind to wander freely, unburdened by the weight of the day. May your dreams be filled with serenity and gentle landscapes, and may your rest be truly deep and replenishing, preparing you for the new day that awaits. Until our next journey into the captivating corridors of time, sleep well, dear friend. Sleep deeply and peacefully.